Okay, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Declare that carried. Right, thank you. Now we're on to the last item for the day, team, which is the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Amendment Bill and rates capping. Michael Burns will speak to that. Now, I'll just introduce the purpose, Michael. Purpose is to delegate authority to the Group Chief Financial Officer to approve a technical submission on the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Amendment Bill and approve an update on the process for the government's targeted consultation on rates capping. Very good. Okay, Michael, so we've obviously got the paper which is up on resolve, but if you'd like to speak to the item, that's fine.
Kia ora koutou. This report addresses two items of local government reform coming from central government. The first is a proposal to make changes to the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act. This legislation was introduced last Tuesday night and referred to Select Committee, and then on Wednesday morning the Select Committee set a deadline of the 23rd of January for submissions. That's why we're coming to you somewhat late today. The purpose of the bill is to simplify the legislation and make it easier for users to provide solutions to infrastructure issues across the country. The changes have been informed by feedback from councils such as ourselves and others who have been investigating the use of the legislation. The bill is largely focused on technical issues, and therefore our recommendation is that you delegate to the Group CFO to approve a technical submission on the bill. The second item is rates capping. So this has long been signalled by the government, but details only became available when the government made its announcement on 1 December. And the next step is targeted consultation with key stakeholders. And as part of that, the Department of Internal Affairs wrote to the Chief Executive on 3rd of December. That letter, which has been attached to this report, included a 2-page fact sheet and some focused consultation questions. This has been followed up by some initial discussions between council staff and the DIA on what details are available about the proposal. So some of the key points that have become clear through this that we know so far are that the capping would cover all rates, so that would include targeted rates, even those such as local targeted rates or business improvement district rates. That water services don't seem to be included. So that would be both water care charges, but also any potential stormwater targeted rate. And the limits are on the price component of the rate. So therefore it would exclude the additional revenue we get from growth in the ratepayer base. So it's just similar to the measure that we normally use with you anyway, the rates increase to existing ratepayers. Some of the questions that are being asked of us are around how the limits would be calculated. So that includes things like the economic factors that they're proposing to use. They're asking what would be the impact of this on major projects, and also about regional variations. So, should it be different for high growth councils? So the DIA require feedback by the 4th of February. And so while that feedback would be largely technical based on the questions that they've asked, the overall proposal itself is inherently political, and therefore we propose to bring our response to the governing body's first meeting of the new year on the 3rd of February, so that you can consider that before we submit. So following that targeted consultation, of course, we would expect a further opportunity to provide input through the regular Select Committee process for legislative change. It's just also possibly worth noting at this point, although not included in the paper, is that another item that the government are currently consulting on is the replacement of development contributions with development levies. Again, we're at the stage of trying to build an understanding from the materials they've provided of how this scheme might work and the impacts on Auckland Council. Consultation on that is due on the 20th of February, and therefore we will look to bring our submission back to this committee on the 18th of February with a briefing or drop-in session for members earlier in the month. So happy to take questions.
All right, and Michael, could I just ask to help give us guidance? Today isn't about discussing the merits of a rate cap. That's not what you're seeking from us at the moment, because there could be temptation from some members to think that that's open for today. So could you just give us some guidance on that? It doesn't sound like what you're after.
So, so our understanding is that what the DIA are looking for from us through this consultation is feedback on the technical components of the proposal. So they've given these couple of documents, and they've also reached out to us to engage and discuss the proposal. So we expect our feedback to be largely technical, but obviously the general sense of a rates capping, this committee have already or the governing body have provided some feedback on that, and we'll look to include that in our feedback.
Okay, all right. Well, just to get the item live, I'll move it. Do I have a seconder for it? Deputy Mayor Simpson. All right. Now we'll just take any questions. Yep. Ken, and then John.
Thank you. I'm scrambling through. I just thought when I was reading all this stuff on the weekend, I thought somewhere here I saw that this we were going to negotiate or take our feedback to the local government NZ. Is that correct?
So for the rates capping item, the government are engaging in targeted consultation. So they're picking who they want to discuss that with. Local Government New Zealand are one of those parties, but since Auckland Council are not a member of Local Government New Zealand, they've come directly, and because hopefully we're quite important, they've come directly to the Chief Executive here.
Oh, good, thank you. I thought we were dipping out.
Okay, thank you. Speaking order is Councillor Watson, followed by Councillor Gillen.
Let Councillor Gillen go before me. I'm just trying to find something.
All right, no trouble.
Didn't have his
Oh,
hand
wrong John. Okay.
Back,
All right, John,
okay.
we're back to you, mate.
No, it was just to follow up on the kind of throwaway comment of Michael there about, and I think you've made it clear in respect of the rates capping. Do we have a workshop or something? There was some passing conversation. But we're not actually getting the opportunity to feed into that. I'm basically saying I don't think we have had a proper consultation or discussion about that. There was some offhand comments. Can you just clarify that, Michael, please?
There had been some discussion in an earlier governing body meeting, but there hasn't been a chance. It's only come out in the past week and a half to have any kind of workshop on this, and with the first meeting being the day before our submission, it's unlikely we'll be able to find a chance, but we'll have a look at what other opportunities we can to distribute draft materials or something in January.
Okay, I guess just my concern is I'd like to have a look at it in a bit more detail. So I don't think there's been a party line that's been robustly communicated yet. So that's just my concern that we're not putting in anything formal, but it doesn't sound as if we are. Yeah.
Okay, and there's a GB on the 3rd of February, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe.
3rd of February, that's very unfortunate. That short week before Waitangi.
Yeah, so just to clarify, this isn't a formal submission process. All that will come later. This is, the DIA have asked LGNZ, Auckland Council and a few others give us some technical views on how the cap will work. So we will do some work on that, and we'll bring that to the governing body on the 3rd of February. It's due to the government the following day. It's a very tight time frame, but that is kind of what government said. So that is the opportunity. Normally, we might just do this on a technical basis, but because it's rates capping, we know it's really significant, and it's not just for staff to give a view on this. It's quite fundamental. So we will bring that to the governing body on the 3rd of February. You can have a say there, and if we can do some engagement ahead of that, that's great. But bear in mind, it's a pretty tough time of year to get people involved. But we'll do the best we can.
Richard.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, and you said this is not really time for debate, but how do you know what you're adding into the submission? Because obviously once the submission is kind of written, it's hard to unpack it on the day, on the 4th of Feb.
I suppose what we're looking to do is to work with the DIA to support them in getting something that could work. Now, the overall merits of the scheme, kind of conceptually, probably we wouldn't want to address through this process, and maybe, as Ross said, that comes later on through the formal submission select committee process. But at this stage, it's working with the DIA. We're also raising with them a number of key questions we have that we're looking for answers on, and they relate to things such as impacts on our debt and bonds and things.
Yeah, through you, Chair. That was going to be my next question. So I had some questions earlier about debt and what that does. This itself, as far as I can see, is part of what we learnt through Three Waters, is that essentially us being sovereign and independent and being able to rate gives us good borrowing ability. But even if we were to stay under the cap, just the fact we are constrained would mean our debt is suddenly more risky or higher costs, which actually could add to rates. Is that?
That would depend very much on the specific scheme that they bring in. We've like I said, we've started conversations with the DIA, and we've raised this. They've definitely been clear that through their advice, that's not the intention, and that they would look to see what they could do around that, and ensuring that it didn't end up impacting credit ratings, but that's kind of to be seen.
So, both of our credit rating agencies, S&P and Moody's, have considered the government announcement and had a look at it. They haven't taken any action yet. Standard & Poor's have been commenting pretty much all year on sort of a weakening institutional framework across local government, and the clear view is this doesn't help the credit rating. This makes things riskier, not less risky. But they're taking a sort of wait and see approach. They'll see what this means for council budgets and debt projections as things unfold.
And just a reminder that you've given us at least a broad direction in terms of that final step of negotiation around the regional deal in this matter.
Yes. Will we be asking about the structure of how the regulator, or whatever they're calling themselves, will do it? Like I'm assuming the public will think it's a yes, no, but I'm imagining it could be a no, you can sell the port, or no, you've got other options. Like, how will we know what it looks like on the other end? Because I think if we said, yep, we've got a storm, and they're going to definitely say yes, but if it's, we're going to look at your other stuff and decide for you where you can get money.
Those are kind of all the details that we kind of need. We'll be asking questions. Some of this is the government asking us, how do we think it should all work? It's kind of early days. There isn't a really detailed policy document or draft legislation. It's kind of there's been sort of broad policy announcements, and now they're seeking questions. It's an opportunity for us to put our views forward on how some of those things work. And a related question that's come up in the New South Wales context is, how long does it take once a storm happens or event happens? How long does it take to go to a regulator and get permission to move or have an exception outside the cap? So there's all those questions and how it works. That is still an evolving process. So this is just about some initial feedback on some key policy points. There will be further details and proper submissions process further down the track.
Will you ask if this means that they will take up large projects like the City Rail Link, for instance? Other councils get 100% funding for projects like that. I mean, this is an example this year that we will no longer, as a council, be able to decide to do a big project ever again under this model. Like, will we be asking that sort of level of, like, I just really want it black and white on what this means.
I think we'll be seeking that sort of clarity, recognising what Michael's talking about at this stage. We're talking about some technical reflections on how would this work were they to do it. So again, you'll have an opportunity, we will have an opportunity to submit more into the substance, the policy settings and what have you in terms of the scheme in due course. Not quite at the moment.
And last question, kind of cheeky. Will you ask them if they will need to run a balanced budget like we have to, do renewals like we have to, have an asset management plan like we have to, consult on our budgets like we have to, or is that too far to ask
Or
the government?
in a 30-year infrastructure strategy and a 10-year budget.
I think that's rhetorical. Thank you, Councillor Filipina.
Tēnā koe hea mana. Tēnā koe Michael. Look, I don't know, and I'm looking at B, but also 19 around the variations in extreme circumstances that are in the report. My pātai is, it's in regards to a discussion, and I think it may have been an open around any exemptions in regards to the legislation. Now, I know that this submission, according to the report, is around technical information. So the process for the targeted consultation on rates capping, is that post February the 3rd, where we will be having a discussion as the governing body or any of the committees of the whole around possible exemption?
Possibly the questions that the DIA have asked do include the last question about any need to account for variations between regions. We think that may be an area we can talk about the impacts on high growth councils and the other exemptions, such as in the case of a major weather event. Ross has already spoken to and has already asked the officers the question of how long will it take to get an answer. And so in the case of an event. So those sort of exemptions have already been, are included within this. This process is not the process that would look at, for example, Auckland Council being exempt or outside the scheme. That would be a different process, whether that's through a later submission or through the regional deal.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not talking about exemptions as indicated in 19. I'm talking about exempt from it for us to have an informed conversation to put our submission in regards to rates capping.
So this targeted consultation is they've asked us a small set of questions. They haven't asked us that one, would you like to be exempt? They've asked how this cap should work. So you might want to make those kind of points, but this process is kind of quite narrow in scope.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Natake.
Tēnā tātou kia ora. Thank you, Chair. I've just got, so on behalf of Haukura, this issue is, there's a lot of interest there for Haukura. And I just note back in your Māori impact statements, in the first line there was may affect Māori interests. So all of a sudden it is something quite significant to us. We've got some questions here, but what I'm hearing is that there are still things that need to be worked through, details that need to be found. I just kind of wanted to ask, at which state will you be engaging with Haukura so that we can participate in what the submission process looks like, or seeking confirmation that that will happen? Thank you.
So that is actually on the first part, the Infrastructure Funding and Financing Act bill, sorry, that's the one that has the particularly tight turnaround with the 23rd of January. And there are a few lines that we are trying to get clarity around that relate to Māori land. So we are working away on that and looking to engage as much as we can, probably initially through Māori Outcomes team within council, and then if possible with Haukura.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other speakers to it? Okay, all right. I'll put the motion there. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Right, declare that carried. Thank you very much. Well, that was the last item. So just look, in closing, this will be our last Budget and Performance Committee meeting for the year. So I guess it's, just to wish you and your family and your friends a safe holiday period. See you back safely here in the new year. And of course, this budget process is pretty major kind of milestone to have got through today. So there's a few people to acknowledge, and we probably need to start. We're at the mayoral office, and to thank the chief of staff and the staff in that office for preparing the papers, along with the mayor with support from the deputy mayor. So thank you for your efforts in that regard. Thank you, councillors and local board members and the members of the Independent Māori Statutory Board for your participation today in making the decisions and taking us forward and taking Auckland forward in terms of this consultation process. The staff in attendance, thank you very much for all your support. And I guess I'll just sign off finally by thanking the people at the top table here, the Chief Executive, the Chief Financial Officer, Duncan, and Sandra. Thank you very much for supporting the meeting and making it successful. On that note, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.